Hello everyone, my name is Spencer Walsh. Welcome to today's show. We are talking about the general updates with regard to the situation in Israel and Palestine. And really, as Ramadan begins, the continued decimation going on there with regards to any type of aid. Also, we are looking at a little bit of a kind of, pathetic, but I guess you'd call it a back and forth about red lines in the Rafah conflict and some of what Benjamin Netanyahu had to say towards Biden on this, some of the comments that Biden made to MSNBC. Also, Jamaal Bowman, whose analysis out in Jacobin about why he deserves support from the left in his upcoming primary that I do happen to voice my opinion on later on in the show. Also today, we will go through some updates for the election. All right, so we will get started with the show today, starting in Gaza, where Ramadan continues with no mosques. The Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs says Ramadan in this Gaza Strip this year is unlike the holy month in previous years or anywhere else in the world, especially in light of the destruction of all aspects of life in the Gaza Strip, including dozens of mosques. This is in Mondoweiss here. Ramadan has arrived as Palestinians have been suffering from lack and scarcity of food and drinkable water for more than 5 consecutive months. Philip Lazzarini, head of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, said Ramadan is here as displacement continues and fear and anxiety prevail amid threats of a military operation in the southernmost point, that is obviously in Rafah. The month should bring a ceasefire for those who have suffered the most. They need respite and a peace of mind. It's long overdue, he continued on X. Saba al-Hindi, who went food shopping on Sunday in the southernmost city of Rafah, told the AP, "You don't see anyone with joy in their eyes. Every family is sad. Every family has a martyr." Just absolutely unimaginable stuff as we continue to see and really not truly be able to process the amount of just human suffering and just destruction of souls, destruction of futures, just loss of life and humanity that's going on in a way that again, 2 people in the West, 2 people that don't have family that are there is just absolutely incalculable. And we can watch as many videos on our phones as we want. We can send as many posts, as many tweets as we want, but it is just absolutely indescribable in every single way. On Monday afternoon, 2 more children in northern Gaza died of starvation, reported Al Jazeera, citing local sources, bringing the total number to 27. Most of those who have starved to death. At least 1 in 6 children in the north are malnourished, according to the World Health Organization. "I came here to buy, but I can't find anything to buy," said Sufyan al-Yaji, a displaced Palestinian in the north of Al Jazeera. Meanwhile, we have the other side of that. Israel politicians are refusing to lift the siege on Gaza to allow adequate amounts of aid trucks to enter the Strip. Instead, collaboration with the U.S. and Jordan, they're still exploring the possibility of these airdrops and building a port to receive aid. And I feel like, this Israel endorsement of the airdrops really just reveals them for what they are. I think, in my opinion, and probably in the opinion of many Palestinian people, it's a complete just waste of time, complete BS. And I think you are really going to benefit from putting anything, especially that the U.S. leads from, is something that Antony Blinken said to, I forget which Israeli official, about 3 months back or so, like kind of in the first bit of this genocide, which was essentially that you can, what we want from you, Israel, is what Blinken was saying to the U.S., Secretary of State for the U.S., was essentially saying that we want you to essentially give us enough things to tell the world, to tell our people, to lead the PR defense, to cover for you so you can do what you want. And I think this port situation is no different. Biden, Jordan, they both know they're under a PR crisis. They both know that their respective populations are horrified by what they're, supporting, especially, more so with the U.S., but I'm sure the population of Jordan, I know a lot less about it, is not thrilled either. So they need to come, and Israel obviously could always use a PR win. They are coming together to do this, airdropping situation, even though in this, port building situation, we'll see the details with that. Seems like it's just, the way it's starting to be described with this floating and all that stuff, or, it's going to take months to construct. It's going to only allow a certain period of aid. All that is in, and this is how if they really wanted to help, all that is in complete ignorance of the fact that there is a massive tens of thousands of trucks right now sitting there at the Rafah border of Egypt waiting to come in, that Israel, not Egypt, Israel is blocking to get in there. And that is a major, major point. And that is something that no one really is talking about when we talk about all this aid. And the fact that if the U.S. wants to put any sort of real pressure, not just probably agreeing to this aid situation that they probably coordinated in advance, I think that's really what it would do. And it really also, that's also, by the way, letting these aid trucks come in. That's what everyone has said on the human rights side would be allow the adequate number of aid, or the adequate amount of aid, but they don't want to be responsible for that. They don't want to have to deal with that. They just want, again, to be able to tell people we're doing something, but continue on doing exactly what we're doing. Just get all these annoying people, essentially, to go away. I think that is, becoming increasingly clear. Meanwhile, in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem, Israel is gearing up its armed forces for harsh crackdowns and restrictions on movement and worship as Ramadan begins. On Sunday evening, Israeli forces repeatedly prevented a large number of Palestinian worshippers from entering Al-Aqsa Mosque compound in occupied East Jerusalem for Tarawih prayers, which are the special night prayers that take place during Ramadan. According to Wafa, not Rafa, but Wafa, the news agency, Israel has escalated its restrictions on the area and is now only allowing women over the age of 40 to pray. Moreover, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered his defense, national security, and finance ministers to open up space in Israeli prisons in preparation for arrests of thousands of more Palestinians this year. And again, these are not people who they will arrest fighting. These are civilians, probably most likely, who they will detain and for extended periods of time without any justification, without charge, and face no real punishment for it. As the world's focus continues to be, justifiably so, what's going on in Gaza, but also, completely ignoring a lot of the just general built-in repression that's only being enhanced that most Palestinians face, even before October 7th. And this is a really significant thing about what's going on with Ramadan. I think people do not understand, or, Westerners, atheists don't understand that. Yeah, we talk about a lot about it, but religion really does play a big role in this conflict. The Israeli attacks on what should be the Muslim space to pray by pretty much every international agreement has been a major kind of inciting factor. It was also the factor that incited the blow up in 2021 and has been an inciting factor in countless incidents throughout this broader, war and this broader, campaign of extermination by Israel towards Palestine and the Palestinian people. So, Kodura Fares, head of the Commission of Detainees and Ex-Detainees Affairs, has condemned Netanyahu's decision to provide more holding detention centers. Netanyahu's mind is crowded with the hateful, aggressive plans, and the decision he made to equip and prepare new detention places is categorically confirms his decision to continue the war against the Palestinian people for as long as possible. Fares added. In the days leading up to Ramadan, Biden administration, they really kind of just ridiculously planted the seeds of hope that a ceasefire deal would be reached before the holy month began. However, there is no agreement in sight. Hamas official Ismail Haniyeh says the group has shown great positivity and responsibility in the negotiation process under the auspices of Qatar and Egypt. If Israel adheres to a ceasefire and allows people to return to their areas they were forced to flee from, we will demonstrate flexibility in the issue of the captives, Ismail Haniyeh said in a televised speech on Sunday. We do not want to reach an agreement that does not end the war on Gaza, or does not let displaced people return to their homes, or does not ensure the departure of the Zionist enemy from Gaza. So, I mean, these are the three conditions that Hamas has. And if you look at because this is a situation that Israel has fundamentally refused to accept, and if you're looking at the situation for the perspective of the Gazans, and the perspective, putting yourself in the shoes of the Gazans who have just undergone this genocidal campaign for almost 160 days now, it's like, how in the world would you not expect them to want to get Israel out no matter what, and not give up anything until they know that they can get Israel out? It's not an outrageous demand, and get them out for good, not have them take a 6-week break and start coming out again because they want to cause more chaos and quote unquote get Hamas more, which is, we've seen how they get Hamas. It's kill 80% of the civilians, to get, a very undetermined number of Hamas fighters, given that they're still fighting in places that they, long ago say that they have maintained operational control over. It's like, if you really want to deplete Hamas, if you really want to make, wilt the, growing Hamas plant, I guess, deprived of light, deprived of oxygen, the way you increase it, by the way, is do exactly what Israel has done over the past 30, 40 years, which is kill every person that's more secular, more reasonable, more, amenable to peace than Hamas, boost Hamas by sending them money frequently, and enabling their leadership structure to flourish in Qatar when they absolutely had the choice to take them out many, many times. And then, continuing brutal assaults on civilians and watching Hamas's popularity only soar. That is what you would do if you want to bolster Hamas. And that's what Israel's done every step of the way. So just putting that out there, when we talk about, every single Hamas person has to be destroyed. It's almost something that they don't even believe, at least by their actions, at least by, if they're in any way trying to do the situation logically, it's not how you would get rid of Hamas. It just is not by any basic military strategy. I'm no expert. So I do want to turn the page here and get on to what Joe Biden had to say. This was him talking about any possible red lines in an interview with MSNBC.
What is your red line with Prime Minister Netanyahu? Do you have a red line? For instance, would invasion of Rafah, which you have urged him not to do, would that be a red line?
It is a red line, but I'm never going to leave Israel. The defense of Israel is still critical. So there's no red line. I'm going to cut off all weapons so they don't have the Iron Dome to protect them. They don't have. But there's red lines that if he crosses, and he cannot have 30,000 more Palestinians dead as a consequence of going after. There's other ways to deal with the trauma caused by Hamas. It's like look, the first time I went over, I sat with them and I sat with the war cabinet. I said, look, don't make the mistake America made. America made a mistake. We went after bin Laden until we got him. But we shouldn't have gone into Ukraine. I mean, we shouldn't have gone into the whole thing in Iraq and Afghanistan. It wasn't necessary. It just caused more problems than it cured.
Yeah, so there is definitely a lot going on there with Joe Biden, and the mental flailing kind of coming up at the most base level. But if you go beyond this, it again is just them doing what they've always done, what their whole strategy throughout this war, throughout this genocide has been, which is to just say something that makes it seem like we're doing something to get people off our back. I mean, you really could have easily said, basically, and it would have been a pretty serious thing had he actually backed it up. Obama, he saw with Obama, what he took a big political hit for not backing up the red line with Syria. Obama did, so maybe Biden's thinking of that a little bit, but just be like, this would have been a pretty ideal moment to actually say there is a limit to how far they can go, to how many people they can kill. I mean, I guess he did appear to say, 30,000 more Palestinian deaths, that's your limit, just double what we have now. I mean, it's just like, I'm sure you didn't, literally mean that. I'm sure that's not, White House policy, but again, it just shows, really how bad of a communicator and how absolutely ineffective he is. And he knows he is not going to be really stopping anything major here. He knows, it's just a complete statement of, if you pull out, we red line for Rafah, no further than Rafah, it's a red line. It's just, and then you turn around literally next second and say, like, I don't know if anyone heard this, like, we're never going to abandon Israel. There's no red line that would cause us to abandon Israel. It's meaningless. It's a joke. And it's just something that people like MSNBC, people on Twitter could take and play and say, Biden says red line for Israel. Of course we have red lines. Rafah is a red line, or whatever, construction of things that he said. But then he goes and says there's no red line that would cause us to abandon support. Well, I think that part you're going to see talked about. You're going to see just spread throughout the mainstream media channels. You see that a lot less, because it's the first part of what he said is the purpose of what he actually said. Of course, he devalued it and just completely made it meaningless the next sentence later. But I think it's going to be the first sentence is going to be really put in channels where they're trying to reach the Democratic base, because they know it's a bit of a problem here. But I think it is really just a level of delusion. It's Biden and his campaign always in the past trusting, proving the polls wrong. No time, especially when he's been on the ballot, has had polls for him that are this bad, and he's still gone on to win. And he also, there's been no time where it's been this politically damaging, or at least as the polls show, to be pro-Israel. So he's not taking this seriously, and this statement really shows it. He knows he can continue to do exactly what he's doing, and at least, until now, no one's ever faced any political consequences from continuing doing exactly what he's doing. So he's just doing this cover your own ass, complete, total charade game. And it is very, very clear to see. I mean, there's red lines that if he crosses, it can't be good. It won't be good. But there's no red line where we're gonna leave Israel. It can't be good. Oh no. So here is the remarks from Netanyahu.
We'll go there. We're not going to leave them. I have a red line. You know what the red line is? That October 7th doesn't happen again.
And again, it's a complete joke. I think Netanyahu and Biden probably, they get along well enough. They're cordial with each other. I mean, they're probably not the biggest fans of each other. I do to a certain extent believe some of the, pathetic leaking that Biden's putting out there. But at the same time, Netanyahu's playing a game to his base too. He's security obsessed, Arab hating base. He's going to be like, our red line is to make sure October 7th never happens again and we destroy them all. We just talked about really how unrealistic that is, and how it's negated by Israel's actions in every single way. But he needs to, for his own political purposes, portray that to his base that he is the most concerned. He's going to be the most effective. He's going to be the most dedicated towards stopping everything that the Palestinians do. And also, by the way, spinning right back in Biden's face. This is a red line. What you said, no Rafah is a red line. My red line is that October 7th never happens again, goddammit. We're going on a Rafah and we're just fucking them up. That is the political calculus that Netanyahu's playing. And my theory on this is that Biden knows what he's doing. He has to play the sad sop. We don't exactly like it, but we always have to support Israel. That's how it is. And then Netanyahu says, sorry, Biden, we're going to be tough. We're going to be strong, and we're going to kill the terrorists. It's like, it's this game that they play, but both, in their, kind of internal conversation and their broader political goals, letting Israel do whatever the hell they want is a common goal for both Biden and Netanyahu. And if you look at their actions and not their rhetoric, I think that really reflects. So, anyway, we will transition now to our next story. Jamaal Bowman he, we often hear from the left here. This is in Jacobin, Liza Featherstone. We often hear from the left on how important it is to use our power as voters, union members, and protesters to reject politicians who have not called for a ceasefire in Israel's war on Gaza. But she says it's equally urgent to defend those elected officials who have advocated for a ceasefire against the war and the occupation itself. The pro-war, pro-Israel forces are mobilizing against those elected officials, hoping to take them down. Jamaal Bowman is one of the most stalwart ceasefire defenders and the most electorally imperiled. But AIPAC spending $100 million to try and take down Israel's biggest critics this year. Biden going to be chief among them. Bowman going to be chief among them. He's already got $20 million spent against him, I believe. Bowman's history on Palestine, it has been pretty complicated. His New York district includes many serious supporters of Israel, and some of his actions in the past have angered the left. When first in office, Bowman voted in favor of Israel's funding Israel's Iron Dome missile defense project and took a trip to Israel. The DSA and the National Political Committee issued a nuanced endorsement or statement at the time. Some called for his expulsion, but Bowman did allow his membership to lapse. I think it'd be good for the left if they were able to come together in some sort of public way, and DSA was really able to fully lend their organizing support for Bowman in these kind of circumstances. They need to show some support. They need to show they're doing something. They need to rally their membership money. And, the left needs Bowman in Congress, and Bowman, I'm assuming, would like to be back in Congress. So I think it's a win-win-win for all parties involved. But, especially since Bowman has been a passionate advocate against the war, for a ceasefire, and for Palestinian lives. I think really good, round of applause, get J Street out of here. They lost J Street's endorsement, partly for, calling the post-October 7th attack on Gaza a genocide. In November 7th, he participated in a essentially intermittent fasting, but they're calling it a hunger strike in this article. But they said we need to end the mass murder of Palestinian civilians and Palestinian children. Many DSA activists speak highly of him, and many will be involved in his campaign this year. But he is going up against George Latimer, who is pretty much the Democratic machine candidate for Westchester, someone who's been in major Westchester County politics positions for a long time, been around the block. Westchester, he was a Westchester County exec who is currently who is getting funded by AIPAC to run for this. Essentially, just propped him up, said, hey, why don't you want to run? Wouldn't be surprised if they bribed him like they tried to do against Rashid Tlaib unsuccessfully in Michigan. So he's obviously gone for that, and he is, he's going to be their guy. And he is definitely going to be someone who has a very winnable race. He's got the way the district works. It's kind of our New York, or just my classic attempted geography lesson over audio. New York 16th Congressional District. Here, if we pull it up, it's a kind of easy district to understand. It's a pretty big block. It goes just recently, I believe, was expanded to just include a little bit more of Co-op City in the East Bronx, which is really where Biden is most powerful, and includes some of the more upper kind of whiter, liberal, more affluent districts. Put it back into Monter Jones's district for his run against Michael Lawler, a little bit more up north. But if you go from the city, southern New York City up into northern New York City into southern Westchester, this is essentially where Biden's district is. We got parts of the very northern part of the Bronx, which include Wakefield, Eastchester. Again, that's Co-op City, recently being put in. That's heavily Black Latino, much poor, much more likely to be pro-Gaza, a little bit more skeptical of Biden, and much more likely to be pro-Bowman. It's always been his strongest part of the district in the past. And it's also, a part where people are going to be more amenable to his economics, more amenable to his style, and more supportive of Gaza over Israel and the Palestinians over Israel. And the question is, again, how can you run up those areas run up the turnout in the areas of, the northern tips of the Bronx that he has included in his district, and also the less white parts of Westchester, namely the southern part, Pelham, Mount Vernon, New Rochelle, and Yonkers. From pretty much then on out, you got little maybe a bright spot in White Plains, and in Portchester maybe, but you essentially then you got the people probably most hostile anywhere in the country to a progressive agenda, a Justice Democrat style, left wing, challenging a Biden agenda, and you got some of the people who are, by the way, also the most pro-Israel in the entire country. So from places like Scarsdale, places like Chappaqua, for example, you got very, very pro-Israel people up and down. Rye, for example, like all these places where you got affluent, kind of liberal, socially liberal people. You're going to get people, and a heavily, by the way, wealthier Jewish population. You're going to get people who support Israel in heavy, heavy numbers. So it's it's going to be a big, big uphill climb for Bowman there. Excuse me, but it's going to be very, very interesting to watch, nonetheless. All right. With that being said, let's take a little bit of a turn to Biden himself and the election, and Donald Trump. So this is the New York Times here. Days after allies took over the RNC, Donald Trump's advisors are imposing mass layoffs on the party, with more than 60 officials, including senior staff members, laid off or asked to resign and then reapply for their jobs, according to two people familiar with the matter. So almost a mafia-style bust-out, really, of the RNC going on at the moment right before election time. It's essentially going to be a vehicle, most people are suggesting, I think it's probably accurate knowing the way Trump rolls, is to come in there and pay Trump's legal bills for him, essentially, work that little thing out, and keep him going until the election, because he's definitely got a lot of court appearances to deal with, especially if he loses. So he's going to want to have, get that stream of income. Also, kick out the many rhinos, the many Trump skeptics that I'm sure are populating the RNC, including their chairwoman, Ronna McDaniel, who is, I guess, a Trump wishy-washy. She was with him sometimes, against him other times. But and just putting in, her, I think it's her actually his daughter, excuse me, Lara Trump, whatever, in charge. Also, kind of a joke, I guess, but we have the Biden budget proposal is out, $7.3 trillion budget on Monday, packed with tax increases on corporations and high earners, new spending on social programs, and a wide range of efforts to combat high consumer costs like housing and college tuition, while also, including the $100 billion for border security in this quote-unquote bipartisan border deal, which is an absolute joke to any sort of liberal immigration policy. Spit in the face is really what it is, in a just basic reality way. I think that is one reason in and of itself why the people should not be thrilled with this budget. Another reason is, he can say all the left things he wants, but I think the base especially is starting to realize that he is, shows no political capability, shows no will, shows no desire, or even if he had a desire, he shows no ability to be able to use his political leverage as the president. And when he was in power, both parts of Congress, to actually get anything done, to actually break the filibuster, or kind of do anything about the filibuster, which is, kind of makes a lot of this rhetoric, this, you can make all the money you want, I'm a capitalist, Jack, but you got to pay your fair share. It makes this kind of stuff.
Cut the federal debt even more by making big corporations and the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. I'm not anti-corporation. I represent the state of Delaware. More corporations incorporated in Delaware than every other state in America combined. But guess what? But I'm a capitalist.
I love how that
man.
gets the clap.
Make all the money you want. Just begin to pay your fair share of taxes. I had a tax code that charged them 25%. Not the highest rate, 25%. You know how much that would raise over the next 10 years? $400 billion. $40 billion a year. Imagine what we could do. From cutting the deficit to providing for child care, to providing health care, to continue to provide our military with all they need.
again, a very lukewarm case for any kind of just populist redistributive economics there from Biden, that he has shown he has absolutely no political will, no political desire, especially at, 36% approval rating, to actually fight for and carry out. So it really makes it meaningless. I think people are starting to realize how meaningless it appears. So, and of course, you were talking about same thing with regards to Social Security. We've seen, I do believe, Biden's not going to cut Social Security, and Trump kind of bringing it up in the first place is a bit surprising given how he has been pretty anti-Social Security, but I think it is remarkable that we're in the point in our political culture where both these two guys have really been strongly for cutting Social Security at various points, but seeing the political wins, knowing what's best, they have said that it's not going to be, it's not a position that they should dare say publicly, which I think is a definite sign of progress and a sign that we're moving in the right direction on that, as opposed to where things would have been 2010 through 2016. That was a really rough time. That kind of, at least that stupid part of economic, I guess, liberalism, as in being very liberal with the markets, being pro-capitalist, neoliberal, I guess. That argument has been sidelined for the time being. I think the fact that we have both candidates really kind of advocating for it, very, very clear. And then, Biden is rallying for healthcare costs and taking a dig at Trump in New Hampshire, getting out there on the campaign trail. How about that for Biden? White House spokesperson kind of also confirming the Biden apologizing for the illegal situation, but saying it's not an apology. There was no apology anywhere in that sentence, essentially saying he only regretted the word illegal. Donald Trump also threw his weight behind former Representative Mike Rogers in the wide-open Republican primary for a Senate seat in Michigan, being vacated by a retiring Democrat. Mike Rogers will be a great and powerful senator for Michigan, Trump wrote on his Truth Social website. So it's going to be interesting. I think, they could play that right, but I think Democrats will probably be able to hold it. But essentially by running the right line on Gaza relative to a absolutely shambolic Michigan Republican Party. In New Hampshire, Biden gave a speech on healthcare costs that was notably less energetic and loud than his State of the Union, because you can't jack someone up with drugs every single day. And the two campaign events in Pennsylvania and Georgia that followed. Perhaps that reflected the less exuberant setting. Maybe that's what it is. Official policy rollout rather than a political rally. At points, he was hard to hear. So we're in great shape, guys. Good to see Biden getting out on the campaign. Again, it's not like he just makes mistakes. It could work like that, but he's running out of energy. The battery in his brain is just faltering. It's flickering. You can see it in the way that he talks. It's just like, come on, we can't be doing this. It's really apparent, and it's almost a sad situation. But the fact is, he has pushed for this and fought for this at our expense every time. So it is really sad, not just for him, but really for us. But that is all the time we got for you today. We will be back on Wednesday.